exists, he's ultimate, or not. All right. So which of the two are you in here? Which of the two
I
categories are
am
you
in neither again because the
in? All right.
issue here is
Listen, Lene, do you accept the law of excluded middle?
yes.
Okay.
The issue
All
here
right.
is so here. Let
There
me.
are
Can I give
two.
you an example?
Listen, Lene, listen. There are two positions: the God worldview and the not God worldview. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
Do you affirm a worldview, a metaphysic, an outlook on reality? Yes or no?
I affirm a worldview. I affirm a
Okay.
worldview
The
in
worldview,
which
as we stated earlier, the worldview that you affirm is either going to be the God worldview or the not God worldview. Correct?
I affirm a worldview in which my beliefs are true by
Listen,
either God creating the world or
Lene,
not.
listen.
Okay, all right. Let me,
Either the
Robin,
worldview is the
Robin,
God worldview or the not God worldview. Correct?
Let me jump in here. Okay,
Mhm.
okay, Lene.
Mhm.
In without any disrespect to you, this is the same old shtick we get all the time from
I
people
know
on
it's the
CrossFit.
right
Okay,
answer.
okay, okay. Listen to me. If you fucking overtalk me like
Okay.
people do, you're going to be kicked off the stage in a blink of an eye. Do you understand?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Don't overtalk me.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, when two human beings speak to each other, there's a sort of unwritten social contract that we will be truthful to one another. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to be truthful with me when I ask you questions?
I hope so.
No. I said, will you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, do you purpose right now not to be evasive in order to stalemate the line of questioning?
I promise not to be to stalemate on a questioning.
I
Don't
said, do
promise.
you purpose not to be evasive to produce stalemate in the interaction? Do you purpose to do that?
I am.
It's a
I
simple
do recognize.
question. I have no patience for people who are bullshitting me. Okay? Now,
Mhm.
you're going to get kicked off the stage in a moment. You're doing precisely right now what I'm asking you not to do. Do you purpose to be transparent and not evasive so that you can stalemate the interaction? Do you purpose to do that?
No.
Okay, then get off the stage. Did you understand the question? Good. Okay, see, this is what we're dealing with here. These people are committed to being deceptive. They are committed to being evasive when it suits their purpose. Okay? It's that simple. So we need to ferret these people right out, and when they're not going to purpose to be not evasive, then we need to get rid of them.
You think he actually clearly heard the question? Because I don't know why he would say no. Why would he admit to being evasive?
Because we're dealing with an inordinate number of scumbags on the internet. So why waste our time with these people?
So you believe he clearly heard the question and
How
answered
many
that
times
honestly?
did I make it clear that I was trying to elicit from him that he'll be truthful, transparent, and not evasive? And yet, the whole time he was cutting me off. He's being evasive while me asking him not to be evasive.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'm just sort of. I'm not stunned per se, but I'm kind of like, dude, why would you just blatantly
Be-
admit to being a
because
BS shit like that?
because Tom Locke, we're dealing with people who are on the internet who are scumbags. Got it? Look, let's take for example the professionals that we deal with. PZ Myers. I say to PZ Myers, how is it that there is no God? Now, what does he say? He says out of his mouth, Oh, I'm not saying that there couldn't be a guiding intelligence, meaning God, but in 2009, he wrote a paper on Thanksgiving where he basically asserted there is no God. A couple of weeks ago, he posted a video how he became an atheist, where he categorically states there's no God. So if the professional atheists resort to scumbaggery and evasiveness and deception and lying, then why should we expect any greater character out of people who are nobodies on the internet? He's back now. Are you going to be truthful and non-evasive, Lenny? You got 10 seconds to answer. Unmute your microphone.
Yes, I will not be evasive.
Good. The moment you are evasive, I'm going to kick you without warning. Okay?
Understood.
Now, I have no desire to do so. I have no desire to mute or kick you or silence you because you and I simply disagree. But if it's clear to me that you're being purposely evasive, you're gone. Okay? Now, I'm not going to ask you what you know or what you believe. I'm going to ask you what you do. Okay? Now, do you sometimes eat lunch?
Yes.
Okay. When you invoke propositions and facts, do they explicitly or implicitly reference the necessity of God? Do you do that?
Not explicitly.
I said, do you?
I do
No.
know.
Okay, no. Don't give me this bullshit. I do not know. Implicitly means that you're conscious of it, but it's not explicitly stated.
Then no.
Good.
No,
okay. So we're talking about what you do. So when you make statements, you utter propositions, by choice, you invoke them without referencing the necessity of God. That is what you do. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the denial of God need not always be explicit. It can be implicit. You can invoke or affirm certain propositions while not explicitly denying God. They can implicitly deny God, indirectly. Now, as Jay was saying, there are two worlds. There's the God world and the not God world. In the God world, all facts are invoked with reference to the necessity of God. That is what people do in the God world. In the not God world, people invoke facts. This is what they do without referencing the necessity of God. Now, you have told us that you choose to invoke facts without the necessity of referencing the necessity of God. That is what you do. Isn't that correct?
I believe so. The double use of necessity
Isn't that correct? Isn't that correct? Thank you. Now, whether you want to admit it or not, you are denying the existence of God by implication and indirectly by invoking facts without referencing the necessity of God. Okay? Now, God cannot logically coexist if there is even one fact that does not by necessity reference it deriving and depending upon him. In a God world, all facts that are not God by necessity derive and depend upon God. Okay? Because when we talk about God, we're talking about the supreme being, the creator of all things that are not himself. So, in a not God world, there are no facts that ultimately derive and depend upon God. Because God would not exist. God can only logically coexist in a world where all facts necessitate deriving and depending upon him. Do you understand everything that I've said so far?
I think so. Can I test that by saying, do you hold that there's only one possible world then?
Okay. Do I have? I don't even know what that means. Okay, there could be a possible world where God allows me to eat a hot dog for lunch, or where I may not eat a hot dog for lunch. Okay.
Or maybe more specifically, are all
Bottom line
possible
here
worlds
is
are
the
all
bottom.
are do,
The
does
bottom
God exist in
line
all possible
is,
worlds?
listen to me. I have an itchy trigger finger.
Mhm.
So listen carefully. Your position, whether you admit it or not, whether you realize it or not, what you do affirm and what you do affirm that you do entails the falsity of God. Are we clear?
If I'm correct, yes.
Right. No. So your position is not one of simply going, oh, I don't know. You can claim you don't know all you want, but that is cognitive dissonance because you do believe and you do invoke facts by choice without
Mhm.
referencing the necessity of God. So we're not going
Can
to play any more verbal games here or mental gymnastics about what your position is. Your position entails the non-existence of God. Are we clear?
can a Christian
Did you answer
invoke
my
facts
question?
without? I believe it is
Are
dependent upon this
we
answer.
clear that your position entails the non-existence of God? Are we clear on that?
We are not.
Okay. Goodbye.
Mhm.
Hit the road. See, this is what they do. Okay? They know that they cannot defend the falsity of God. They know that that's their position, but they lie about their position. They're like Democrats in the United States elections. They lie about almost everything in regards to what they want to do. And we're done.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm a Christian, and I don't see how this argument follows.
I didn't make an argument.
Well, you try to posit that when someone.
Listen to me carefully. I didn't make an argument. I'm simply pointing out that what he chooses to do, what he does, commits him to the non-existence of God. Are we clear?
Yeah, I have an objection on that.
You can't if you're a Christian.
Okay.
Because
Can
do
I?
you understand? Do you believe in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth? Do you believe that?
Yeah, sure.
Do you believe when it says in Hebrews that Jesus Christ upholds all things by the power of his will?
Of course, I believe that. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that in the Christian worldview, all things that are not God derive and depend upon God. There is no single state of affairs that is not God, that does not derive and depend upon God. Are we clear?
But persons
There's no
that.
there's no but. There's no but here. Now,
Yeah, that
please
holds
don't
for me.
overtalk me. Okay, listen to me. No, it holds for the unbeliever as well.
But he can be an
Okay,
undecided on that.
listen to me. His being first of all, he's not undecided. Where did you get that from the Bible? The Bible states in Romans chapter 1 that ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, okay,
That's talking
everything.
about pagans. That's
No,
out of
sir, it's
context.
talking about it's okay. Get the fuck out of here, you piece of garbage.
Wow.
Wow is right. Excuse my French. I don't have patience for people who are just dishonest who claim to be Christians. As I was saying in Romans 1. Ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, God's eternal powers have been clearly seen through what has been everything that has been made. So men are without an excuse. And the word there means a legal defense whatsoever. In other words, there is no rationale that they can give to support that they are in a state of ignorance in regard to the relationship between facts and God. And yet this guy claims to be a Christian. Guess he's never heard of Romans chapter 1, has he?
Hey, Darth, could I ask you a question?
You just did.
Well, true. Could I ask a couple more?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
yes, you
you
may.
you always
Yeah.
have to say, "Can you ask at least two questions?"
Just
Yeah, that's
just just
I
look,
say I
just fire away, okay?
yeah, okay. I'm really only interested in one, and I really don't want to fall out with you because I like listening to your speeches, or like not speeches, encounters. I mean,
Why don't you
um,
why don't you call them what they are? Rants.
well, I'm
I'm
trying to know.
joking. I'm
Okay,
joking.
yeah,
Go
cool.
ahead.
um, do you think you could reference something without being aware of what you are referencing?
Um, Unbelievers do reference God at a very low consciousness level, but they are constantly and at a moment to my moment basis suppressing it
Mm-hmm.
because they know, and we know, and it's not very complicated that if states of affairs, whatever they may be, in question, are not derived and dependent upon the mind, the plan, and the sovereignty of God, then there is no rhyme or reason as to what anything is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But you see, every waking moment, everyone goes around. Okay? But let me put it this way. At a very young age, okay, children learn about the existence about God. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, at
Well,
first, children,
not all
uh,
children. I live in a pretty secular country, and it's not taught in schools, and it
so
wasn't taught by.
that's not the issue. Children from a very early age hear about the concept of God.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they don't have to quote accept that God is, but in order to conceptualize it, you have to momentarily accept that God exists, just for the thought experiment, and then you either choose to retain it or you choose to flush it down the toilet in your mind. Okay, now I take no prisoners when it comes to the issue of neutrality, and nor should any Christian. Nobody's neutral toward God. We have an unimaginable number of people who are hostile toward God, but they will deny that they're hostile toward God because what they don't realize is not acknowledging the existence of God is hostility toward God, even though they claim that they're not. Okay? Now,
Yep.
the point is this: you can't be neutral toward God. Okay, when God has a basic conceptualization of being the supreme being and creator and sustainer of all things, you will either moment by moment retain that and think whatever object you have before you is in the hand and mind and power of God, or not. If you are conceptualizing any other concept of God where God is not the creator and sustainer of all things, then we're not talking about God. Then we're talking about some creature that is subject to one or more parameters that everything else is subject to. But then that's not God. Much of the time when unbelievers refer to God, they're not talking about God. They're talking about an disembodied or unembodied creature that's going to get you, who's very powerful, very knowledgeable, who's going to get you if you don't love him. Okay? But that's not necessarily the creator creature distinction. The bottom line here is this: most unbelievers that you and I will run into on the interweb do not believe that God exists. But they don't feel that they can adequately defend the non-existence of God, so they play the little verbal kabuki dance of I don't knowism. Well, that position is not defensible, because as I said with the previous liar, not the last guy, but the guy before him, when you invoke facts, it'll either by choice be with reference to God or without. And if you choose, or anyone else chooses to invoke facts without reference to God, then that constitutes the denial of God. Okay?
Yeah, but now we come back to now we're coming back to the question, right? Because the question was, can you reference something without being aware of referencing it? And I
Not
think that
when it comes to God.
you have to be aware that you are. You have to be aware that.
Sir,
Mhm.
God is a transcendental universal. All things, by definition, all things would derive and depend upon God in a God world. Now, if you do not affirm that, if you do not practice that when you invoke facts, then you will be invoking explicitly or implicit another universal, which is a negation of the God world universal. They're both universals. You will either invoke facts individually or collectively with reference to the necessity of God or without. Both of those actions are universal declarations. Whether somebody realizes it or not. The reason why so many unbelievers are so disgustingly deceptive and evasive is because they know they cannot defend the falsity of God. They can't. Like the other day, somebody said, well, God can exist. Well, no, well, it's impossible for a blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute. If it's impossible for a mind to exist without a body, then what is it that ultimately determines anything? Well, they can't answer that, can they? So they can't say that it's impossible. Right?
Yeah, I think I'm following. So,
now, if they want to say that God being ultimate, from which all things derive and depend, is an unembodied mind that is the source and basis of what anything is, can be or cannot be, but that cannot be, well, then they're not in a position to state anything can be, because then what is ultimate, determining what is, can be, and cannot be, will be indeterminate. And therefore, you couldn't say what's possible or impossible either at an ultimate scale or independent, not or deriving from that. The problem is when unbelievers are confronted with the incoherency of their position, rather than openly admit that they've been cornered by their own position and that their own position is not coherent, they just become deceptive and evasive. We see this every single day. Right? Because there's no consequences. Okay? See, they wouldn't dare act this way if they were in a courtroom, sworn under oath, and they could be hit with contempt of court by a judge. But they do it on the interweb because there's no consequences. Who cares?
okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard was that it's possible, but not in the context, or not in the God context, right? To reference something without
What's possible?
to reference something without being aware of it.
Well, sir, you there are different levels of awareness. For example, there are things called tacit knowledge. Okay, things that
Okay.
we know, but that we know more than we can say. Okay, it's called tacit knowledge.
Yeah, an example of that is learning something, understanding what you're learning, but you don't learn how to learn something. Like when you were a baby and you ate, did you learn how to do that? No, you just ate. It's called tacit knowledge.
Yeah, we know more than we can say, or even recapitulate in our own mind to ourselves. There are things that little toddlers know, but they couldn't articulate it either to themselves or others. But they know certain things. The God of the Bible has made it clear that he has made us to know. At a certain point in neurological development, we come to know that God is, because of everything in the world indicates this. But certain individuals choose no longer to retain it. At a very early age, I realized, wait a minute, if there's no God, then there's nothing ultimately dictating anything. Right? Who's to say why anything is? The bottom line is, unbelievers want to step up to the plate, and they want to hurl out their little unbelieving cliches and slogans, and then when their sloganeering gets taken apart and dissected, then they just become deceptive and evasive, and they bicker because they don't want to admit the obvious. I've even had professional atheists do this. Okay? I have asked a number of professional atheists with PhDs, 7 or 8 of them. I asked them the following question: how is it that God doesn't exist? And every single one of them gave me a verbal runaround. Gee, what a surprise.
So we cannot reference something that we without knowing when we're talking about tacit knowledge.
In tacit knowledge, there are things that we know more than we can say.
Mm-hmm.
There are things right now that you know, but that you may not be able to recall or even to articulate.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with children. It's called tacit knowledge. If you want to read more about it, you can read Michael Polanyi's book. I don't know if I pronounce his last name correctly, but it's called Tacit Knowledge. The bottom line is people want to go, oh, I don't know. Madeline Murray O'Hare, peace be upon her, may her soul rot in hell forever, said the people who do the I don't know-ism are just atheists who are cowards. Okay? And then
I
when you
think a
hold
lot
their
of
feet,
atheists would disagree with her, though.
well, it's good for them that she's not alive, or she'd slap them upside the head. The bottom line is, okay, they are cowards, even the professional atheists, because they lie about their position. Why did P.Z. Myers lie to me when I said, how is it that there is no God? And he said, oh, I'm not saying there could be a guiding intelligence. And then he turns right around a matter of months later on his own YouTube channel, and he categorically states there's no God. Now, how do you explain that? Well, the answer is he's lying. When atheists are confronted with the bankruptcy of their atheism, that atheism is indefensible. Okay, it's completely indefensible. They will then lie about their position that atheism is not the denial of God, it's just simply the mere absence of a positive belief in God. This is the little game that they want to play.
Maybe I'm just dumb here, but I'm still not clear on whether or not one can reference something without being aware that you're referencing it. You said
You do
not.
reference it. You do reference God in your thinking, even at a tacit level, because God makes you to know that He is, but that
Mhm.
you suppress it.
Okay, so wait, I do reference God without knowing it. Yeah, yeah. So you
No,
can
you
do that.
do. Well, there are different levels of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I mentioned tacit knowledge. God has made you and I to know that He exists. But the fact that you do know it doesn't mean that you can't suppress that which you know on a daily basis and come up with mental and conceptual semantics and gymnastics to suppress it, like you're sitting on a volleyball in water polo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
So
here's the bottom line. In order to deny God, we would have to exist. Because in a not God world, there would be no truth or falsity. There would be no final reference point for anything. Nothing would mean anything. Nothing. On the other hand, the only alternative is a world with God, where everything originates, starts, implemented, and is sustained in the mind and the redemptive plan of God. So this is a true dichotomy. Openly deny or indirectly deny that everything is what it is by virtue of God's eternal properties, purposes, mind, and plan. Then when you talk about the rabbit, wiggling its ears or the grass blowing in the wind, that doesn't mean anything, because when we examine the presuppositions underneath that, they're unidentifiable and indefensible.
Okay, but then I think if now I think it's more clear. But then I think a lot of the agnostics that you've been discussing with have stated that they don't know, right? Which you're familiar
Okay.
with. But then they actually,
Agnosticism
real quick,
is about as valid as somebody trying to sell you a plastic piece of Civil War memorabilia.
yeah. So, but what I'm trying to clear up here is that I think that the people that claim to be agnostic and that say that they are they don't know when asked how they invoke facts in the non-God world. I think they're just like unable to explain it in the same way.
No. Their claim is garbage. It's about as valid as Matt Slick claiming he's a gourmet cook. It doesn't fly, right, Matt?
Well, okay.
I don't accept this claim. They say, "Oh, I don't know," because the God that I know and who has revealed himself in creation and human history has revealed that they do know. They just choose to suppress it. So I don't buy this claim when they go, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know." Yeah, is it very popular that they claim that they don't know? Yeah, this is widespread. Who cares?
So, Darth, I noticed something. Like when you reason with atheists about the necessity of referencing God, I noticed that you fine tune your statement a little bit from saying what they believe to what they do. I
Well,
caught that.
yeah, yes, yeah. I have been doing that is because even when I try to refine it, they're always trying wiggle room of how to lie and deceive. Okay? So they'll go, I don't believe either. Okay, you want to play that game? Good. Then I'll say, what do you do? They'll say, well, when I invoke facts, I don't believe that they reference the necessity of God or not. Say, oh, okay. Well, then the question is, what do you do? Right? What do they do? In Romans 1, it talks about what they do. They chose not to honor God. And it says their foolish hearts were darkened. Everything that comes out of their mouth, short of repentance and turning to faith in Jesus Christ, is to one degree or another a deployment of deception. Right? And they don't like that. But you know what? I'm sorry. This is what Van Til called pushing the antithesis. Welcome, Matt. Are you there?
Yeah, I am. I was away from the computer for a little bit there. How are you guys doing?
Okay. All right. Well, maybe you missed my insult.
What was it? Probably a good one. What was it?
I said that something was about as true as Matt Slick claiming to be a gourmet cook.
Ah, I am definitely not a gourmet cook. That's for sure.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry I didn't get to you in time, but I just wanted to let you know that when in the Praise I Am clubhouse that you're in, Praise had done a trash video on you.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's no big deal.
And he's turned on me. He used to sit there and tell me behind the scenes that biblical presuppositionalism was biblically solid, and then he starts hanging out with Smokey Saint, and then he did attack videos on me, and then I don't know what happened between you and somebody else in his room, but then he said he called you a scumbag, and I didn't even bother listening to the rest of the tape. I was just so disgusted.
Yeah, the Smokey guy, we were supposed to have a discussion. You want to discuss limited atonement. Okay, fine. I don't care if, whatever. And we had this discussion. He couldn't even understand a true dichotomy. That's what it came down to. And so I had to teach him. Literally, it went like this. It was like, okay, it's the case that I'm walking, or it's not the case that I'm walking. That's a true dichotomy. It's the case that, it's a case A, not the case A, okay? And so I said, it's either the case that Jesus died for the sins of everybody who ever lived, or it's not the case that Jesus died for the sins of everybody who ever lived. And he said, that's not a true dichotomy. I go, what? Because you're just inserting your Calvinism in. And I'm like, okay, it just went on like this for 20 minutes, half hour. I just said, okay, I'm sorry, but you're not even, I said, try to say it politely, but you don't even know enough to know that we can't even have a rational discussion if you're not going to be able to get that, And I said, I'm done.
Smokey is borderline deranged.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And he has a long history of being a wackadoodle and even lying about, like, for example, he claimed that he studied Van Til's works when he was taking a seminary course or so in the seminary library 20 years ago, and it's simply not true. It's just like, so that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah. So if that's why there's complaining and stuff like that, it's like, okay, that's fine, whatever. I don't mind people disagreeing. It just use a little bit of something called logic, just a little bit. That'd be fine.
No, they want to see. Here's what they do. I mean, you and I disagree on Calvinism, and we've discussed it before, right? But Smokey Saint is the kind of person where he can't cordially disagree on this important issue without trying to, turn somebody he disagrees with within biblical Christianity into a heretic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like that. If people disagree, okay, let's have a rational discussion. But the point is, he's not capable of a rational discussion. I'm sorry, but he's not.
No. But
it's going to waste my time.
Yeah, you should just know that. So if you ever enter Praise's clubhouse room again, you know where he's coming from.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just going around looking and listening. So. Yeah.
I warned him not to allow Smokey in the room, and I said, "Bad company corrupt good morals."
Should be a bad Australopithecines corrupt good logical premises or something.
Australopithecines.
Yeah.
Gosh! Just imagine the look on Richard Dawkins' face when he dies. God.
I've actually thought about that with these guys who have spent so much time working against God, and then they face Him. And I don't delight in that, but the terror before them is going to be incredible. Poor people.
Yeah. It's sad. By the way, if anyone wants to come up and ask Matt some questions, I see Ian's raising his hand. Okay.
Yeah, just whatever.
I have a question.
Sure.
What would your face look like if you die and you end up in Hades?
What would my what look like?
What would your face look like if you died and the Greeks were right?
I can't understand him. My hearing's not very good.
No.
He's presupposing the falsity of Christianity, in other words.
Okay, yeah. So here's the problem. Okay, what you're appealing to is, do you hold to a Greek worldview?
Nope.
Okay, so what you're doing now is a worldview body double. Okay, you're proposing a worldview that is not your own, which is not ours, in order to juxtapose it to the Christian worldview in an attempt to make the Christian worldview superfluous, that it's not the only option. Do you realize that's what you're doing?
Well, you're probably actually. I feel like you're reading more into what I was saying.
Okay, did you hear?
Okay,
hold on a second. Hold on a second. If you ever talk me again, I'm going to kick you off the stage. Now, I asked you a question and you evaded it. Okay? Now, I said, do you realize that what you're doing is what is called a worldview body double?
If I was doing it seriously, that's what it would be. But it was
No,
a pretty
well,
lighthearted joke.
well,
It was a joke.
then
So,
if it's that's good, then what? Okay, okay? So, what is your worldview?
lapsed Catholic,
A lapsed Catholic.
Irish Catholic.
Okay. Well, the problem with Catholicism is they don't have the God of the Bible. Because if they did, they would be following the true gospel of Jesus Christ. But instead, they have another God that is the name of the God of the Bible, but it's not the same doctrine of salvation. Are you aware of that?
Like I said, I'm pretty much just invested in this world mostly. I don't
Okay.
really think about
Okay.
religion much.
When you say you're a lapsed Catholic, that's not really very informative. Do you believe in the Catholic doctrines?
From what I was taught of it, I sorta. I mean, you need a little bit of something just for comfort in
Okay.
this world, but
Do you
ultimately,
believe in the God of
not really.
Catholicism?
Vaguely, yeah.
Okay, then why would you well, you said it was a joke anyway, so I won't go down there again. Well, let's put it this way. Do you understand that if you believe what the Catholic Church teaches, when you die, you're going to spend eternity separated from God? Because the Catholic system of salvation is where you come to Jesus, you get some of your sins forgiven, but then you're on a never-ending treadmill of sacerdotalism, incrementally getting rid of your sins in the hopes that you'll be good enough that ultimately God will forgive your sins when you die. Well, that's not the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Do you believe
Mm,
that? Do you believe that Mary intercesses on behalf of the saints?
Yeah. So Jesus
uh,
said, you must be born again. Okay. And what that meant was you need to come to a radical change in your life where you realize that your soul is damned. You're going to spend eternity separated from God when your heart stops, and you turn to God to save you from the damnation that you are now under. Okay?
look, I'm not. You're not. Look. I mean, I was just interested. I was just interested in this conversation, like listening to you guys. I'm not really
Okay,
trying to
good.
be converted, but
Good. Okay, have a nice day. Okay, so we got to use a troll.
Can I
Okay,
get a
that was
couple of questions in?
sure. Go ahead. Why don't you ask Matt since he's here?
Oh, well, it was specifically a question for you. I'll let someone else come in if you don't want.
Okay, no. All right, go ahead.
Just
I
curious,
mean,
how old were you, Darth, when you became a Christian?
I was about I think 19.
And did you have God beliefs before that point?
Yes, I've never doubted the existence of God.
What were your beliefs before Christianity?
I was raised nominally Catholic.
And what led you to believe that was true?
Which what the existence of God, or do you mean?
Catholicism.
Repeat the question.
You were a Catholic, you said?
No, I was nominally Catholic.
Did you believe Catholicism?
Nominally,
And what led you to that belief?
what I was taught as a child.
So just indoctrination?
Yeah, but then when I was old enough to read the Bible for myself, I began to realize that the Catholic doctrines, and specifically the Catholic doctrines of salvation, were a false representation of the true gospel of Jesus Christ, and that I needed to repent and be born again and place my faith and trust in Jesus Christ as my Savior.
So for a certain amount of time, you were believing what the cult leaders were telling you.
Not and nominally, because I had no reason to doubt, because there wasn't a reference point for me to doubt it from. But when I read the Bible for myself, now I had a reference point. Right?
Okay.
It was like a gigantic spotlight in a dark cave that was turned on when I read the New Testament. Like, okay, the Catholic Church doesn't teach this, it doesn't teach that. There's no Mary worship. I couldn't find sacerdotalism in the Bible. These were all perversions and grand extrapolations of things in the Bible. Okay, So Catholicism, in my view, is simply a giant cult. I have no emotional axe to grind with Catholic Church. I was never treated wrong. I never had any bad experiences. I had no reason to call into question Catholicism whatsoever until I read the Bible, and specifically the New Testament. Okay? And when I became a Christian, I began to realize the Catholic Church, along with other churches, were not accurately teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Do you attend a church now?
I have a local Bible-believing church I attend, yes, non-denominational.
Okay, thanks.
So why aren't you a believer?
I was, and then it wore off. For
No,
me,
no,
it was the
no, no, no.
opposite. I was raised a
Right
Christian, and then when I read the Bible myself,
right now, why do you not believe?
I'm unconvinced
Okay, of what?
of the truth of Christianity. Well, of gods in general.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So, what convinced you of the truth of the not God world?
I haven't discovered the truth of the not God world.
Oh, sir, you don't understand something. Okay. Either you will be believing in the God world or not. So you will either believe that all facts ultimately derive and depend upon God, or you will believe that all facts by necessity do not derive and depend upon God. So you will believe one or the other. There is no middle ground.
What's the question that you ask about the? Oh,
What you said, you're not convinced in the existence of God. What convinced you of the non-existence of God?
nothing. I haven't been convinced yet.
Oh, okay. Well, you see, this is a fallacious position because you're claiming to be neutral. You're claiming to be undecided. So I will just simply ask you a simple question. When you invoke facts, I'm going to ask you what you do.
Mm-hmm.
When you invoke facts, do you reference the necessity of God?
The necessity of the necessity. What does that mean?
When you
Invoke.
invoke facts, do they necessarily reference the necessity of God explicitly or implicitly? Do you do that?
When I invoke facts, I don't think of God at
When
all.
Good. So then you invoke facts by choice without reference to the necessity of God. That, sir, constitutes the denial of God.
But I don't reference them to the non-God world either.
Okay,
Can
okay,
you ask that
okay,
question
okay.
the other way?
Hank, listen carefully.
It's a dichotomy, right?
Either facts will reference the necessity of God, or facts will be invoked without referencing the necessity of God. If you invoke facts without referencing the necessity of God, that constitutes the denial of God, whether you admit it or not.
What if I invoke facts without referencing the non-God world too?
That's impossible. It cannot be. You're not
You
understanding.
have to invoke facts from some world, whether
Sir,
you like it or not.
let me ask you this question. When you invoke facts, do they reference the necessity of God?
No, nor do they reference the
Okay,
necessity of
okay, so
non-God.
that's a lie right there.
No,
That's
it's
an
not. It's
yeah.
absolutely the truth.
Let me explain something to you. Okay, that's what you just said is incoherent. When you invoke facts, they are invoked without referencing the necessity of God. Are we
Right?
clear? Good. So your facts are said to exist without reference to God.
Can you ask that question in the other side of the dichotomy too?
Listen carefully.
Can you?
What you are attempting to do is simply camouflage what your real position is. You will either invoke facts with reference to the necessity of God or without. What you do invoke facts without reference to God. So
How do you?
listen carefully. In the
How did?
not God
Go ahead.
world, listen to me. Whether you invoke the God world or the not God world explicitly, they can be invoked implicitly. When you said you do not invoke facts with reference to the necessity of God. So then by default, You are invoking facts without referencing the necessity of God, which constitutes the not God world, but you're denying what you're actually doing. You're like a rapist caught in Central Park, and the police officer says you're under arrest for rape, and you say, officer, I'm not raping her, I was just making love to her without her consent. You're making a distinction
No,
that's not there.
no, I'm
Listen,
saying I never touched her.
Hank, listen carefully. You invoke facts without referencing the necessity of God. Isn't that what you do?
How does one reference the necessity of God?
Hank, if you dodge another
No,
question,
but I don't
I'm going to
know.
kick.
I don't understand.
Goodbye, Hank. Goodbye.
You can't explain it?
Yeah, I'll explain that you're kicked from the stage. Yeah, this is what Hank does all the time. Hank dodges and dodges and dodges and dodges. This is what he does. Okay, I've dealt with him on dozens of occasions, so we're done. Okay, this is what they do, folks. They dodge, they evade, they lie. They will say anything in order to evade the responsibility of what their own position actually is. Anyway, I got to take a break.